So welcome everyone to another Women in VFX global panel event. We're so glad you could join us today. And for those who are going to be watching the recording, we hope you can make it next time. My name is Shaina, and I'll be the facilitator today. I'm a visual effects supervisor, producer, and artist who has worked in Los Angeles and New York for over 20 years in feature film and episodic TV for visual effects. I now own my own company, Flying Turtle Post, and I teach visual effects and post-production at Syracuse University in New York State. For those who are visiting us for the first time, I'll tell you a little bit about our organization. So Women in VFX started as a Discord server group in 2020 during the pandemic by Emma, one of our lovely panelists. It's been a great way to connect with other women around the world and in the visual effects industry, and it provides a much needed space for us to talk about topics we may not feel comfortable about talking about in the workplace just yet. So our community thrives on giving advice, mentoring, building self-confidence, and creating a community of amazing women in visual effects. If you're not a member yet, we encourage you to join our Discord and find more women in the industry like yourself. Today's panel topic is about parenthood in visual effects and how it affects your career and relationships throughout the process of becoming a parent. This can include adoption, egg freezing, using a donor, infertility treatments, and becoming pregnant naturally. Our panelists are coming to you today from the UK, Canada, the US, some by the way of New Zealand, and Australia. So during the conversation, I'll be managing the chat. After the panelists are able to introduce themselves and answer some of our pre-prepared questions, we'll open up the Q&A to the audience. So please use the raise your hand function to ask a question or type your question in the chat. If you'd like to remain anonymous, you can direct message me and I can ask your question on your behalf anonymously. We expect the discussion to last about an hour, but it could extend to 90 minutes depending on how many audience questions there are. The panel is being recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel for those who can't make it here live today. So thank you all for coming yet again, and let's get started. So I'm going to pass this off to Ellie, who will be the moderator for today's panel. Ellie?
Nice. Thanks very much. That's a great intro. Thank you for attending, and thanks to our speakers. I'll be moderating. Yeah, as we said, I don't have kids, but I'm starting these conversations with my partner because I'm at that age where it's becoming something worth talking about. And I'd love to hear what everyone has to say about their experiences. There aren't many mothers in my workplace that I can ask questions to. So the Women in VFX platform was amazing. And as we can see, everyone's from all over the world and everyone's keen to help out and answer questions. Yep. So on to you, Kate.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that was really quick.
It's okay. Hi, my name is Kate Xagoraris. I'm an effects artist in Toronto, Canada. And as of this year, I'm 25 and I don't have any kids, but I went through a miscarriage this year while being in visual effects and going through the strike, which was something that I'll be sharing during this podcast or recording. And I primarily do like Houdini stuff and work in effects and things like that. My partner situation is that I'm not really in a long-term relationship post miscarriage, but my whole experience was unplanned. But today I'll be kind of sharing that experience, going through the process of going through a miscarriage in visual effects.
Amazing, thank you, Carol.
Hello, I'm Carol Madrigal. I am in Atlanta in the US. I have 2 children, 7-year-old and 9-year-old, and I've also experienced a miscarriage. I work at WVFX as a performance capture animator, and I've been in the industry for about 20 years, working in motion capture animation one way or the other. And I'm married. I've been married and been with the same partner for 23 years. I lose count, but yeah, we've been together that long, and looking forward to speaking to you guys more about my experience.
Thank you. Emma?
So I'm in the UK, so it's very late here, so forgive the bags. It's not because of the kids, it's because it's late. That's a lie. It's definitely because I have kids. I have two small children. One is 3 years old, born on Christmas Day, which is also my birthday, fun fact. And I have one 1-year-old. So I'm deep in the weeds with sleep training and weaning and food throwing and tantruming. And that's just my husband, but that's not even the children. I do have a husband. We work pretty much in tandem with each other, trying to handle both having careers and young kids, which has been an interesting journey. And that's sort of what I'm hoping to share with everyone today who's listening and thinking about jumping in, because it's definitely a ride. I'm a DMP lead at one of us at the moment, and I did manage to get a promotion while on maternity leave, so that's a big win, and I'll be happy to speak about that and how much the company has supported me becoming a parent and a working mum, which was always a bucket list. Yeah, so please do put your questions forward, anything and everything you'd like to ask. We'll be really happy to talk about what it's like working and yeah, being a young mum.
Thank you. Clementine?
Hi, so I'm Clementine. I'm the head of FX on an unannounced project at Walt Disney Animation Studios in Vancouver. Before that, I was an FX supervisor and an FX lead at Animalogic, also in Vancouver. I grew up in Switzerland and then moved on to London in the UK and then moved on to Canada. I moved to London to work in visual effects because the industry in Switzerland is not really huge, or it's kind of more like inexistent. My partner is also in the industry. He works in R&D at ILM. So we have no family support in Canada. We're not married, and we have a 6-year-old son who was born here. And I also had a miscarriage. I worked, I worked in CG before, but I broke into the industry quite late. So my first junior FX TD job in London, I was 31. And I also had my child quite late at the age of 37. So by that point, I hadn't had any leadership position. I was a senior FX artist, but I was at that point in my career where I was thinking about it. So that was kind of interesting, bad timing, I'd say. But so my whole leadership experience and growth through that happened after having my child. So that was quite interesting for me. So yeah, I had my first lead job when my son was 2.5. And yeah, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll be going through the custom questions. So Kate, starting with you, you mentioned miscarriage. Can you describe and elaborate how that was to go through? Like if your workplace gave you time off, how did they handle that situation?
So my situation was a little bit different. So I had something called an ectopic miscarriage, which is really rough. So I didn't actually know what was happening to me until it happened. So it was Victoria Day long weekend of this year in May in Canada. And I just remember waking up one morning and I was like, I'm in a lot of pain. And I had like cyst ruptures before. And I was just like, this feels like a cyst rupture. I'm not going to do anything about it. I felt this. I know this pain. I'm just going to take some Advil. I'll be fine. So I went out and I enjoyed the fireworks, and I was supposed to start work the next day on Monday. And I woke up the next Monday and I was like, no, something's really wrong. Like I can feel my everything hurts. This is getting worse. I need to go to the hospital. And then I found out what was happening. And for that entire week, that first week, I didn't really know what to do, if I should tell work what was going on. I didn't know how severe of the situation was, because I'm 25. I don't have any friends who've really gone through what I was going through. So it's not like I could go to my close friends who I've grown up forever with and go, hey, have you gone through this before either? And because none of them had, at least none of them had been in relationships where that could even be a possibility. So I was kind of on my own. And I didn't really understand the whole what I should do, if I should, go to HR, if I should go to my production manager and tell him I needed time off. But I was still in this state of shock where but I had all this information thrown my way and I didn't know what to do with it. And I just knew what had to be done, and I had to do what was in my best interest. And I don't think I brought it up until like maybe 2 weeks afterwards to my production manager, because mentally it was kind of getting to me at that point. And at that point, I didn't really realize how much of an impact it was actually having on my behavior in the office until I had my production manager kind of approach me. And he kind of pulled me on to a call to talk about some things. And I just kind of said to him, because at this point we kind of knew the strike was going to happen, but we also, so there was this added pressure of like, should I tell my production manager? Should I like tell HR and tell them I can't do my job at a time where I should be doing my job? And there's this risk of losing my job because there's a strike. And that kind of built up and built up and built up in me, and I wasn't entirely sure what to do. And like my behavior was so off that it actually, I'm good friends with one of the IT people at that studio that I work at, and he would walk by my desk every day because he was setting up new things in the studio because they were doing a whole renovation. And he was like, you seem really off. You've been really off for the past 3 weeks. And he sent me a little message. He's like, are you okay? And I didn't know what to say to him. So I ended up just talking to my production manager when he wanted to talk about the upcoming strike situation and what was going to happen to the team, and telling him what was going on. And he also kind of wanted to touch base with me because he could tell something was off. And I ended up telling him, like, I'm going through this ectopic miscarriage. I don't know what, this is like the first time this has ever happened to me. I don't know what's like, it's a lot to process. And I kind of broke down the specifics that was happening with my partner, because part of what I was going through was that I didn't have any support from my partner. They really didn't want anything to do with the situation. And I don't think they wanted to acknowledge the situation as much as I would have liked them to, because they would have had to deal with the emotional component of it. And I don't think they were prepared for that. Or they just didn't want to deal with it. And I was expecting that from my work colleagues as well. So I just kind of just kept it to myself as much as possible. And I still don't know if I succeeded or I didn't at that. And it was really eye-opening to me when I was kind of telling my production manager about what was going on behind the scenes, because even though I trusted him, and he's actually a really amazing person, and he's gone on to work for another company at this point and do all these amazing things, I wasn't entirely sure how he would react. And he handled it like a pro, which is not something I was expecting of. When I told him that, I was going through an ectopic miscarriage and I was dealing with these emotions and everything that was hiding behind the scenes, he kind of just said to me, like, I think the first words out of his mouth was just like, I'm surprised you're at work right now. And I was also surprised too, because I knew I still always wanted to work. I wanted to work through the issue, because at that point, like, I could tell my relationship was falling apart with my partner, and I could tell that I was evidently losing something that was really important to me, and all the other emotions that were processed during that, anger, sadness, and everything else. And I didn't know if anybody at work was actually going to sympathize with me, or even if it was worthwhile to go to work and talk to people about it, because I didn't want to be rejected again or lose more things again. And but I was actually really surprised, because the best support I actually got was from my coworkers, who were like, I actually really understand your situation. And I was actually really fortunate, because the production manager actually took some time aside to actually ask me what I was ready to do, if I only wanted to stick to one show for the time being, if I wanted how many shots that I think I could handle during going through this crisis. So it was he actually handled it like a pro. So I'm really thankful that he reacted in that way. And I think the other reason I actually am very thankful of my workplace was because there's like 3 or 4 women on our team of effects people. So one or two of them are actually mothers as well. So it was actually really, when I finally opened up to them, like a couple months later, post talking to my production manager, they were actually really understanding, especially one of them on the team. So it was a weird kind of like hyperbolic situation where the support system I thought I needed wasn't there, but the support system that I thought wasn't going to support me actually did. So it was this weird kind of conflicting situation that I was in, and it did work out in the end. I did have to temporarily get laid off during the strike, but it was actually the vacation that I needed to just process everything that was going on.
Yeah, it sounds so amazing of your colleagues. Would you give any advice to for someone to handle their partner's miscarriage, for example? How would you like to have someone handle the situation?
I think the thing I just needed the most was just somebody checking in and just saying, even just it was a tiny sentence of like, I hope you're doing better today. How's it going? Or it's just something simple, not too specific. It's just I needed somebody just to show some level of support, even in the most simplest way. Even if they didn't want to hear all the details, it was just good to have that. I had a lot of friends. It was actually really surprising to me, because I expected there were a lot of women team members on my team who understood immediately what the situation was and treated me with a lot of space that I needed. But it was actually surprising to me at my studio, and also colleagues that I had known from previous studios who knew something was wrong with me without knowing before I told them, because they could see it on my face and my body language. And then when I told them what was going on, they actually reacted better than I expected. And that was really supportive, because they knew when I would be in town or like around when social events happened. And I noticed after I told them, they just made sure I was invited out to social events. And that was really good for me, because it got me out of my own head. It got me out of my own house. It still made me feel like I was included in the crew. Even though I felt sometimes it was like, a part of me was like, maybe it's just a pity invite because they know I'm upset. But in actuality, they just wanted to make sure I was okay. Because they knew that I wasn't getting the support that I actually needed from my partner. And it was really, really helpful in that way, where it was just like simple things, just making sure I was there at social events, making sure like somebody sent me a meme every other day, or just making sure they said, how's your day going? Or like, I hope you're feeling better. Just simple things like that, where I knew people were there, really helps. So even if I didn't want to talk about it, I could still say, yeah, I'm feeling better, or I'm having an off day, and that would be okay.
Absolutely. How long did it take you to get over, well, not get over, but kind of recover emotionally from the miscarriage?
I'm still recovering. I don't think I'm ever, I don't know when I'm gonna get over it. don't think I was like, the heaviest months for me was, I think, the first 4 months afterwards, because I just didn't know how to. There was the initial panic of like, okay, I have to do all these things to make sure I'm okay. And then it was like processing all the things that I did to make sure I was going to be okay. And then also processing how my partner reacted. So there was sadness over what happened, of like, I could have had some life-threatening injuries. I could have like I could have been a mom. Like there was all these like anxiety driven like emotions, and then there was just anger over a lot of things. Like there's people who I thought were going to support me through it, who kind of just told me, don't talk to me about it, I feel uncomfortable. Or there's people that I know who I've been friends with for 3 or 2 years, who I told, and they said, well, I understand you're going through this right now, but I don't want to talk about it with you. They just completely shut me out of their life. And it was a moment where I kind of realized who my actual friends were, because I could actually talk to them about it. So it created some really good connections for me. And then it also created some really like kind of existential moments where I realized I should probably get rid of some people in my life, because they're not actually going to be there for me at all. So it was really good in that regard. Yeah.
It's a very telling experience, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else want to elaborate, their stories of their miscarriages? I imagine they're all quite different experiences, but a couple of you also mentioned having a miscarriage.
I actually have a question for Kate really quickly before someone. If so, I mean, what strikes me about this story is, first of all, that there isn't enough out there in just the world for women to know where to go to at work straight away if something this serious is happening, which isn't a fault of said company at all. It's just the way we've grown up, and it's something that should sort of almost be in a contract somewhere. If something's, or maybe it is, I don't know, maybe we need to read our contracts more, but I feel like when something like this happens, especially to women of a certain age, there should be like, this is happening, I need to go to this person. And perhaps if it were to happen again to you, do you think you'd have more sort of confidence as to who you would turn to, regardless of what company you would at? Where would you go? Who would be your first point of call? Do you think?
That's a good question, because I think I wouldn't wait for somebody to approach me again and say, hey, what's going on? Or, wait for an update on a production or the studio itself to actually say what was going on. I think I would actually just approach HR themselves and just tell them what was going on. But I also feel, still to this day, I still feel conflicted about that, because I also feel like a production manager is a good point of contact, because they're overseeing basically everyone in the department. But I still would be conflicted if it happened to me again, because our production manager, I like, when I told him, I trusted him, and I actually asked him personally, I was like, please don't tell this to anyone right now. I'm just dealing with something important. Just tell them I'm dealing with something important right now. And he actually really followed my own wishes and didn't get HR involved, and just went to the head of department and said, Kate's got something going on. Didn't give them any specifics, and actually texted me and said, this is what I'm probably going to tell, along the lines of the head of department, if you're okay with that. And it was really good in that regard. But
or was it always kept from HR? Did you want it kept from HR for a specific reason? Like, did you feel like you'd be judged? Or
I did want to keep kept from HR, because I didn't want, at that point, like, we knew the strike was going to happen, and everyone was like, who's going to get laid off first? And I didn't want that weight against me, where it's like, oh, Kate's having a mental health crisis or something, maybe she's going to get laid off first. And that pressure was like immense on me. So our production manager handled it like a pro, I think, and understood those concerns. And I really respect him for that. But I think still to this day, I don't know who I would turn to, because it really depends, I think, on the company that you're in and like how you understand the social structure and how you understand the level of communications between departments and how that's handled. And because the last thing you want is somebody gossiping around the office, or it in fact impacting how you're going to stay at that company. So I think you really just have to get an understanding of the social situation at the studio before you determine who you should talk to.
We're approaching a time to move on, but Clementine, would you like to ask your question to Kate?
Yeah, it's not a question. I think it's like more it also depends on the individuals, right? Like your project manager sounds like you had trust in him, like you knew, like you feel deep down like that you've got that trust and that you can. And sometimes it might be your production manager, sometimes it might be your artist manager, it might be, like, it can be different people. There's one thing I wanted to say, and I like when I had my miscarriage, I didn't know how normal this is. Like, so many women go through miscarriages and nobody talks about it. And as soon as you start sharing, like, everybody's like, oh, me too. I mean, there's, a few of us on the panel, more than 50% went through a miscarriage. It's like, and the older you get, the more those numbers are large. And now amongst my close friends, like, definitely, I don't know, it's probably like an 85% of women I know went through a miscarriage. So it is something that should, I feel, be normalized. And that means that those discussions would happen more often. So like people would be less scared to have them. And, like, honestly, kudos to you for opening up and for finding that support that you needed, because I think a lot of us just, go and try to deal with it on our own. And I don't think that's, necessarily helpful. So
I think
great,
also,
like making it more normal.
Yeah, I think also if you do have a partner, for the men who we're working with, they also have gone through it possibly with their partners. So, possibly your manager, he said, is a guy. Maybe he felt empathy because he'd been through it too. So I think it's like really important to remember that it's okay also to go to a guy about it. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but
Yeah.
it's that you felt surprised by not surprised, but it was great that he worked with you in it, and it didn't have to be such a female situation as well. I would hope that would happen across the board, because I think the more we talk about it, the more it's like, well, yeah, guys also, they go through miscarriages too, if they're on a supporting partner, and it can affect people in different ways, as obviously it affected yours.
Carol?
I just want to mine happened while I was at work, like in the middle of the day. Just went to the bathroom and I was like, oh, something's wrong. And I had to tell someone, right? I'm like, help. So I only worked with men. They were just my team. But I trusted them. So just remember that you just really, like Emma just said, but just reach out to even if it's your immediate supervisor. If you don't get to a project manager, I didn't have time to go, to just try to find HR or do anything. And I didn't even have my car with me. And one of my coworker who I reached out to, he said, here are my keys, because I drove myself to the hospital. We were trying for a baby, so I knew what was going on. And he took care of it, and he spoke, I said, please tell someone, please tell them I'm leaving. And I had told them I was pregnant, so they knew that I was pregnant. And it was taken care of. I was, my coworkers, the guys, they took care of it. They spoke to the people with respect, the people that needed to know. And they just told me, come when you're ready. And I really wanted to work too as well. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm moving on. Like, my mind needs to be busy, but they took care of it. So I think people need to just, trust that somebody's going to be there for you. And I think most likely we're going to get a positive response from our coworkers than a negative one.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, lots of trust for colleagues, it seems. Carol, we're going to move on to your questions next. Can I ask, how important is healthcare to consider for you being in the US?
Well, super important. um, we started. It was actually a doctor when I turned 30 who let me know that, hey, your body is aging and you have a long-term partner. Have you guys discussed pregnancy? And I got the talk from a doctor. But then at that moment we realized that our future, depended not only on finances but also on the health insurance that we had. This is, the US, it probably costs around $10,000, if not more, to have a child at this point. Maybe more because it was 10 when I had them. At the moment where we started getting pregnant, I worked for a small company here. They were struggling, and we wanted to try. We just, there's never a time. If you keep waiting, it might just be too late. So we just that there could be something that could, happen in the near future with the company that would affect our insurance. At that point, I wasn't as informed. I did do research, but I wasn't as informed on how bad it could be. And I stayed with this company even for about 5 months. I was pregnant, and the whole pregnancy, and mind you, these are really nice people. We were struggling, it was just a financial problem. Nothing against the company at all. And there was a lot of emotional support, but it was scary because I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to have a child. And, I was more worried about losing my insurance than not getting paid on my job. Like, that is so traumatic. So, that is the way that it is here. I feel if I could do it again, I would just have a better plan with, in that regard, like what could happen. I was fortunate, had a very normal birth with my first child. Eventually things sorted out, and I had insurance. I was able to take off, have my baby. I think we paid $3,000 for each. My children cost me $3,000 each. But the way the system works here is really against, unless you're very wealthy or have a big financial cushion. Having a pregnancy could be, if it's not normal and you have any complications, could really set you back quite a bit. And if that's something that you're considering in the future, I wouldn't say wait forever, but just the cost of it can really affect your sanity and your even mental health after you have the baby, the bills coming in and everything. So and here it's just something to plan. If I could do it again, I would just maybe have my mind in a better place and plan that a little better, so we wouldn't be stressing out whether I was getting, to choose whether you're getting paid or just working for insurance like that. That's insane. And I know it's insane for a lot of people who don't live here, but it can happen. It happened to me. And yeah, I would just say, do research, right? I think it just takes a little time to do research about insurance plans or savings plans or whatever, just if you want to think about planning for your children in the US, or move to another country if you have that option. That might have a better outcome in that sense.
Is there like an ideal country? Like, would you consider moving countries in order to have a baby?
I would. I would, if I had that choice, which I might have at that point. I didn't look into it. I would consider, I come from another country. I was born in Venezuela, and I honestly don't know what our healthcare system is at this point, because it's a lot of political issues going on. But even I think I would not be thinking about how much money I make or what my position is. If I was 33 again, I'm 43 now, and prepping to have children, I would be thinking, well, if I, become a resident in this country, what can my family look like? What the future of my family look like? And knowing that I'm in an industry that can happen. Of course, I always vote here for, laws that can help us, like do whatever I can. but the change can be slow, and it definitely was too slow for me, you know. So
Yeah.
there's not a country. I don't know the laws enough. I mean, I know Canada's great. You know, England has good laws, and New Zealand has great laws. I'm sure, I think Europe in general has good laws towards maternity leave. I think Colombia does too, you know, where my family's from. I don't need to do the research anymore because that's not something I'm doing anymore, but it's something we can do. And I mean, we can be animators anywhere, or VFX soups, or you know, compers anywhere. So if you have that option, and you want to have a family, and you're at that point like I was, you know, with a partner, and we wanted children, I think I would do it again. I would just plan it better, you know, just be like, oh,
Yeah.
we could do this and that, and not think so much about at that moment, not think so much about career path or money, which is what I was, you know, one of our focuses there.
There's quite a few of speakers are from different countries and perhaps did research themselves before they had kids. So if you want to speak up about your experience in your country, then please do. Emma, what's your question?
I know in the US you have to, because my sister actually lives there, she's got 3 kids, and I live in the UK. So we've compared. How did the VFX lifestyle / schedule bend and flex to only being able to have such a short period off after having a child? You know, what did you do with a very young baby, and also then being the breadwinner in your household? How did that work for you? How do you feel about it looking back? And what was the pros? What was the cons?
So I had 10 weeks of leave for my first one, of which that covers about 40% or 60% of pay for 6 weeks. And then I had 6 weeks for my second one. And we really didn't want to do a daycare for them so young. A lot of people do that, that continue to work. Because I worked at a very small place, flexible with my time, and they were flexible. You know, they were as long as I was, I guess, to contribute, they were okay with my situation. And I took my babies to work from the first one until he was 6. He was 9 months. My coworkers gave me an office, a corner office, with so I had room for the toys and the crib and all that, which sounds terrifying, I think, for some people. I know some of my friends are like, how did you do that? But I was able to, I guess I think I feel like that was my reality. And I was like, okay, well, I love my job. I love what I do. I was a lead at that point. I was a lead where I worked. And I had emotional support from all my coworkers, right? I go to the bathroom and I just pass on the baby. Somebody would hold the baby. It was great. But I think it's a very unique situation. You know, I know this doesn't happen to everybody. And it's probably really rare for them to say, yeah, bring your baby over. It's also very difficult to work with your children there. I made it work. I did. It's many times I would come in very early, leave very late. My husband, which I couldn't have done this without him, you know, he had his own business, and he balanced things around to also take on the baby. Sometimes he'd come pick up the baby, and I'm talking about the baby, but it was the same thing. We had the same story happen twice. And it just, you know, we just push and kept going. You know, there were a lot of sleepless nights, and, you know, hard work days. I would up for some time. I think communication, I you know, didn't hide anything. I just told him what I needed, and then I was making sure that I did what I had to do. And it got done. I think I learned a lot from that, you know, just how much I can actually do and how much I can actually balance. But I wouldn't change that in the sense that I got to be with my children when they were very little. You know, like I got that moment. I remember I nursed both of them for very, very long, and I pumped whenever they weren't there. But, you know, I was so relaxed doing my job, and I had the baby, you know, just on my chest and the carrier, and he'd just be sleeping and I was working, and I was able to separate that. And I felt so happy to have them with me. So I think I wouldn't have been able to just send them to daycare very young. I wouldn't have been able to function. I would have missed them. I would have, you know, I wasn't ready for that. And I'm glad. I don't know if I could have stayed at the job. Like, I don't know what I would have done if they would have said, no, you cannot have just children here. I don't know. I'm just glad it happened. But I think that, I guess the lesson from this that I learned is that if you're flexible and you know, you'll be surprised what you can do. But if you're flexible, and your job can work with you and can also be flexible, I think there's a lot that can be achieved that way. You know, we're like a lot of communication, you know, and it's like, if I do this, can this work? That's kind of how we made it, you know. Just I was continuing to produce because it's an industry, right? They got everybody, they got to make money. So like they weren't losing productivity from me, and I didn't get called out or anything, and I was able to get what I needed with my kids. And funny enough, now I work from home and I have my kids with me all the time, and I'm like, God, I wish I was in an office for like one day. Just take a break. They're here all the time.
That's amazing. Yeah, your office sounds so good. Thank you so much.
That was, yeah, the company's no longer around. If anybody wants to know, they were sold. It doesn't exist anymore. For just, yeah, it was Profile Studios. They were great people, and I'm still really good friends with them because of the experience.
We do need to move on to the next person, but can we come back around to ask Carol questions later? Well, yeah, so we're running out of time. Emma, sorry, going to move on to you. What was it like returning to work as a first-time mum, and how has your company supported you? So you mentioned your kids are quite young.
Yeah, okay. So Georgia was born, the 3-year-old was born in 2020, so it was pandemic time. I remember, I'm the opposite to Carol. I was so happy to send them to daycare. I was so happy. I was like, get out of here. Really needed that help. I really needed my life and my time back at home. And I don't know if that makes me a good or a bad mum, but I really enjoy dropping them off and picking them up. It's like my favorite time of day because you do miss them. I remember the first day sitting back at the box, and it was at home, so it was a bit weird. And I remember starting on the first job and being like, okay, I'm a working mum. Like, I'm doing it. Like, okay, so this is Photoshop. Okay, I kind of remember this. And, and I did feel really happy and sort of proud because it was something I sort of dreamed and had read about, and you know, I was like leaning into my career, and I was working, and I was a mom, and I was doing it, and it was like, it was cool. You know, all that aside, when it is a bit of a slap in the face too, because you go from, well, in the UK you get a year off essentially. We chose to send our kid to a childminder who's essentially a nanny, but takes 3 other kids, 3 in total, so 3 families at one lady's house, and she's just down the road from me. But you get maternity pay is a lot better than it is in the US, so you get to spend more time with the kids at home. So what happens there in terms of your career mind, in a way you switch off, and you have to sort of work to keep yourself involved and into the chat and into those networks, you know, that you do need, you know, to support yourself.
Is Emma frozen?
Maybe.
Chat.
Oh no.
So
She's
it's
back.
sort of,
Oh, sorry, Emma, you froze for a second there.
oh no,
Just a
which
minute.
part did you cut them off? That's okay. That was the best part, but I'll I'll just repeat it. Yeah, what I was saying was I I was a very social person at work before children. Like on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, I was like, let's go to the pub. What are we doing? You know, I was Mrs. Social. And that has obviously changed now because I've had children, but what's happened is my priorities have changed and I don't miss that side of it. And instead I've got the children being that social side, and then I'm able to concentrate more on my career side, almost more, because I have to divvy up my time so strictly. I don't have the opportunity to be socializing and hungover or, you know, working that network. But personally, what I had done is build it quite strongly before. So I didn't need it later on. I have been at my company now for 5 years and had 2 kids there. And they've almost worked with me in tandem about how they've almost taught me about how it works. Because, you know, I'd had questions like, can I leave to go pick them up if they're sick? And they're like, yes, of course, please go pick up your child. I'm like, okay, sorry, I didn't know. Or just speaking to other parents at work and being like, I need to take a sick day, but I'm not sick, it's my kid. How does that work? What does that mean? Am I letting the show down? Does this mean someone's going to take my role and am I not going to get it back? And just kind of very nervously figuring out those first-time mum situations and what flexibilities you can have professionally that now have to mix in with your very personal life, which is becoming more and more entwined with your professional life. So it's a bit of a sort of, your trousers are pulled down a little bit because you do have to be a bit more vulnerable with your focus and time being put solely into your career, because you do have these children now depending on you to be there for them when they're home, whether they're sick or if they're just coming back from school or nursery. So that's been the biggest shock. But I've been really surprised and really happy about how the industry, or I should say my company, because I don't know what other companies like, to be fair, have supported that. And it's surprised me that they have supported that. And I think I'm quite a loud person, and I've put forward suggestions and questions of why can't we do it this way, or why can't we do it this way? And they'll take that in, they'll listen, and they'll ask around in the industry and see if other people are doing it similarly to that. For example, I do flexible working where I do the same hours, but I work half days on Fridays and my partner takes the kids for the other half of the day. So I can still get my full salary. But I have the kids for, to myself on a Friday, which is actually quite lovely. And they were totally fine with that, similar to Carol in a way where I had to prove I could deliver the work and not let people down, even though my circumstance had then changed from just a regular 9 to 5. And you need to sort of prove that within yourself as a career woman. I can still do this. I don't need it to be what it was before. I need it to be this, and I promise I can deliver. So yeah, that's a learning curve, I think.
We've got a couple of raised hands. Clementine, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I was just wondering, you said your company kind of taught you like how this all works. Do you feel it's also because you hadn't seen any other, parent go through that before? Is it because that it was kind of like nebulous, like this mystery of like, how does this all happen?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it was very mysterious. I mean, that's sort of part of the reason I really liked the maternity channel on WVFX, because first of all, it's semi-anonymous, but also you can just put stuff out there and kind of get feelers and be like, is this normal? Is this not? Is this okay? Is this not? Is anyone else doing this? And I think even companies are still doing that and using us as a soundboard to be like, okay, for example, I mean, they've just trialed 4-day work weeks in Europe. They trialed it in England. This is not relative to maternity necessarily, but it's just about pushing those boundaries and not being scared to say, okay, I'm a mum now. I'll be over here. It's like, no, I'm a mum. I can still lead. I can still supervise. I can still do this. And yeah, okay, chicken pox is in my house and it's rampant, but I promise the clients will get their work done.
I strongly relate to that, because I, felt the same before having children. Is like, are there any other parents? Where are they? Like, are they, like, you never kind of really hear about that part of people's lives. I find the pandemic in that sense kind of helped, because suddenly you were in everybody's household and the kids were running around. And
that's a really good point.
It's something that, at this, like at my current workplace, I really like it because everybody's very open about everything they have to do. Like, dads, moms, anybody, they're just like, hey, I'm logging off early, I'm doing school pickup. Like, hey, somebody's sick, I'm staying at home. Like, and they share that it is their parental responsibilities that mean that they're going to be doing this or that. It's not like, hey, I have to log off because mystery something. And I find that really important. And I tried to do that. I heard somebody say they parent loudly, and I love it. I think it's something that's yeah, I try to keep that in mind. And I think it helps because it's just, again, it normalizes the situation. And then you feel like, hey, I'm not the only one. Like, everybody's doing this. This is fine. I can just ask to, log off at 5 to do this or that, or go to the football game or anything.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. Opposite, would you like to talk? Hello. Oh, we can't hear you. No, I can't hear you. But we can circle back round for sure. Cool. Yeah, make sure to raise your hand at the end. Thank you very much, Emma.
Is it any better now?
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
Yes.
cool. Yeah. Hi. So I'm not a parent, just a parent of a cat, 2 cats, but that I don't think that counts. So I had, first of all, it's really inspiring to be in this room with all of you and see how much you do, being working mothers. And I read this phrase once, which I took note of, actually, that there's nobody as efficient as a working mother. And I think that's definitely true, it seems like. But my question was, I feel like being in VFX and being in the film industry, and because we love our jobs so much, we sometimes are on the side of taking our jobs too seriously. I'd be interested to know either of your thoughts. Like, did you find that your perspective towards the job kind of shifted once you became a parent? Like, you stopped taking it so seriously and stopped stressing out so much about it because you felt like, I've been through a whole life-changing process now. I think movies aren't like life or death. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it definitely, it was, yeah, yes. The answer is yes. My mind changed 100%. I think just because there's so much other to focus on, and your sort of hierarchy of what matters in life gets shifted. And it's all individual. It's not, I have friends who are completely obsessed with their careers and they have kids. And I have friends who are completely obsessed with their kids and they have careers. It's like, you just don't know what's going to happen to you until you have the child. And I don't judge anyone, whichever way they choose to go. And you can land in the middle. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think having young kids compared to Carol and Clementine, I'm very tired all the time. So I have to prioritize my energy, and some of that energy is then taken from career goals and career pushing, which it takes a lot of energy. It takes time. You gotta put yourself out there. You gotta lean in. I mean, I know Clementine actually has been hugely successful in this, and Carol, and I'm sort of following behind. But I personally, I think I have taken that step back, and I'm okay with it. I'm very competitive. I'm a very competitive person, but I know it's going to be a temporary step back, and the kids will get older. And as I look to my peers who are here and say, look, I can still be a supervisor when the time is right and when I have that opportunity. It will come to me and I'll feel ready, rather than having to climb and climb and climb and climb and graft and graft and graft and graft. You gotta, me personally, I have to give myself a break and say, this is what I've chosen, and that's cool, and be happy and succeed in that. And actually, I find that my company has sort of given me more opportunities and not taken anything away from me, and has, you know, in a way, you sort of get like a pass to a different club, and it's like you're part of the parent club. It's like, and then you become a different type of person at work, and that you can lead differently, because again, the time and priorities that you have, that you're setting at home, you then set for your team, because you don't have time to F about. You're just like, let's do this, let's get this done. We need to be on point. I'll let someone else speak there.
Yeah, we're running out of time, but we need to move on to Clementine's questions. So if anyone could save their questions till last.
I think like the first question kind of bounces onto what Emma was saying, and I just wanted to add that it's really what Emma said. Like, it really depends on you. I know I'm kind of like all over the place, because we're really lucky in Canada. We get a year of maternity leave. I didn't want to take a year, so I'm going to be that spoiled brat that's going to say, I don't want it, thanks very much. I took 6 months. I wanted to go back to work. I missed work. Everybody told me it's going to be different. You'll see when it's your child, you'll want to stay with them. And I mean, I love my kid. I really do. He's my everything, but I wanted to go back to work at 6 months. That's just what I wanted to do. And I was a happier person. I mean, my partner was a happier partner. He was like, you need to get yourself back to an office. Like, you need to have adult conversations about something else than diapers. So that's just who I am. And I think everybody is different, and they find, you know, like their own balance. Similarly, I started out, when I came back from maternity leave, I started out not on a full-time basis. I worked what I call 80%. So I still worked 5 days a week, but I worked less on Fridays and another day. So I finished earlier to spend more time with my kid. And then after that, I had the opportunity to either take a full-time job or another 80% job. And I went for the full-time, because I knew I wanted to progress my career, and I wanted to see, was I capable of doing that extra? Was that too much? And I wanted to challenge myself. And I found that I liked it better at 100%, and I wanted to get into leadership. And that's something I didn't want to give up. I wanted to try. And so, yeah, in a certain sense, I kind of didn't want to, you know, slow down or anything. I didn't, yeah, and that's just me. I mean, I totally understand that it's not for, it's about you, of what you want to achieve. And I feel like whatever your choice, you should be able to do it. So if you want to spend more time with your kids and work 50%, you should be able to do that. If you want to continue climbing the ladder and, you know, working 100% and finding other ways to, you know, like find the correct support for you to do that, you should be able to do that. But it is, yeah, it does kind of change how you think about things, as Emma said, and you discover things about yourself.
I'm curious how you go about negotiating contracts. But before that, Tatiana, you've had your hand up for a while. What would you like to say?
Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Tatiana. I'm from Colombia. I'm not a parent, actually, but, well, first of all, it's amazing to see all of you female here in the industry, so congratulations. It's really good. I have a topic, well, a question more than anything, is that what I've heard is that you guys say it's a little bit struggling to be a parent and also to work in this industry. But it's complicated to like navigate it between these two things, sort of saying. Do you think that the studio or the places where you work could make this more easily? For example, if the studio had a daycare or something like that. Or for example, do you think it will make a change if your coworkers, mostly male, would make a difference if this person would be female? Like maybe they could understand a little bit more about this topic, or could be more sympathizers about it? It's a question. I have no idea, but what do you think about it?
I can help answer this. So I work at a company with a female CEO, and she's been the CEO since like 1999. And I think because we have her as a CEO, it's a lot more supportive, because there's moments like that have happened. I think there's been 2 moments while working for the company where we've had 2 females, like just before they've gone on maternity leave, an entire like party or luncheon or like some sort of like cafeteria event of the entire studio shows up on Monday, even if everyone's hybrid, and just like says goodbye or like congratulations, so I'm going out to maternity leave. So for that, it's like, I think, really positive, and it's like one of the reasons, like, even though I had like reservations about approaching everyone at the studio, I still felt like there was hope that it might turn out okay. So that was really thankful to me. But I think like the more events like that are hosted at studios, where it's like more of a celebratory thing and celebrating a coworker's like achievement, especially with having a child, that helps like the office environment more, because it's not seen as a negative thing, it's seen as a more positive thing.
Yeah, if an office does like maternity leave parties, for example, before someone goes away. Clementine, I wanted to ask you about going back to work and part-time contracts and how you negotiate that.
Yeah, so I was really lucky because the first time I came back, my first contract after maternity leave was coming back to my previous company. So I already had a relationship. My effects supervisor at the time, he was hugely supportive. Like during my maternity leave, he said, I know you don't know yet, but when you come back, if you don't want to come back full time, I'm 100% gonna, support that. So I had the go ahead, basically. And then that went well, because that's the whole thing, is like, you don't know how you're gonna perform as a mother. I was also breastfeeding, so I spent 2 hours a day pumping. Yay, fun. So, that's a lot of time in your workday that just goes away. And like so you have to figure out, like, how am I going to still deliver whilst, also working 80% and also spending all my time pumping milk? Like, that's just a lot of things to balance. So it was helpful to me to not have to go back full time straight away. And then I got used to that part. And then the next time, well, I'm going to put loads of caveats. The industry was, doing okay. So that meant I had 3 offers on the table. So it's way easier to negotiate when you have 3 offers on the table. But like, at that point, it wasn't, if it's not 80%, I won't take the job. I was kind of open to possibilities. So I applied to full-time positions. And then when we got to the whole point of like, we're going to offer you a contract, I was like, would you consider not 100%? Is that something you'd be open to? And some companies were, and some companies weren't. And that's it. To me, it was just like a conversation. And then what you want to try and do. And I always, so that part was always a conversation. The one part that was not a conversation, because we don't have support from family, twice a week, I leave work at 4:30 to pick up my child. That's it. There is no way around this, because nobody else can do that for me. And every single contract I've negotiated, and I've negotiated quite a few, because this is VFX and you change jobs often. So in those 6 years, every time we get to the offer part and I say, you know, it says here 9 to 6. I can't do 9 to 6 every day. I will do my 40 hours, but I need this to be, you know, different. And I make them change the contract in writing before I sign it. And I've only had one company once refuse to do it. And they didn't refuse, to be clear, they didn't refuse that I work flexible hours. They refused to change the contract in writing. They said, you will figure that out with your project manager when you get there. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't know if that changed, because I did hear back from the supervisor and was like, we should never have let that happen. Because they were like, why didn't you not sign the contract? And I said, well, because of this. So I think a lot of companies are open to that, honestly, right now, if you ask for it. And yeah, and then they also ask, like, when can you do OT? Can you do OT? And then it all becomes a conversation of like when that happens and how that happens. But I've worked in, to give you an idea, I've worked in Vancouver at 4 different companies as a mother now. And I've negotiated probably 2 or 3 extras because I didn't take those contracts in the end. But like, so that's, you know, a fair number of companies. And that's always been, like, I've always been able to have that conversation. Like, they weren't just like, no, that's it, we're not interested, move on to next candidate. So I think it's about making sure that you have that conversation. Like, you say what you can do and you say what you can't do, what's negotiable and what's not, and then try and make that work.
Communication always comes back. And yes, having everything in writing, not just in VFX contracts, just everything in writing. Yeah, so you don't get bitten in the butt later on. Clem, has becoming a mother made you better at things in ways that you didn't expect?
Yes. So Emma touched on that, and I don't know who said, like, there's nobody as efficient as a working mom. Yes. I really believe that. I know it focused me, like, when I came back to work, like, because you have less time, because, you know, you want to be able to leave work and go spend time with your child. You are so focused and efficient, like, you learn to prioritize, because I guess it's just survival mechanism, I don't know, but I'm certainly way better at identifying what is important, where my energy should be spent, and doing that. And like, everything else, you know, can wait. And like, because I became a lead and a supervisor and the head of after, like, those are honestly, I feel like really key skills to have in those positions. So I'm not sure I would have had this career progression, like, you know, having not, maybe it would have taken me longer to learn those skills. I mean, I don't know, because I will never know. This is the path I took. But I do feel like becoming a mother has helped me develop skills that I use every day now in leadership.
It's very reassuring that, yeah, Emma, as well, you progressed in your career despite, well, after having your child, which is awesome. Okay, are there any questions from the audience that we can ask?
Carol has a response.
Carol, sorry.
I just wanted to say, because it was part of a question that was asking what Clementine, adding to what Clementine just said. I feel like after I became a mom, and maybe when they were more like 3 and 5, it wasn't immediate for me. I had this superpower that just came to me, that I was like, oh my God, I can do so much more than I ever imagined I could do. And I started learning. Like, because my company closed down this in 2020, they were bought. I was like, okay, well, I want to continue to be a lead. So I got into project management classes. And then I was like, I'm going to learn Maya is something that I kind of never used too much. So I was like, I'm going to learn more Maya, and I'm going to learn Blender. And then as I was looking for work, for jobs, I was trying to, had this thing that I'm like, oh, I never thought I could do all these things. I just kind of was enjoying my life and working and doing and I'm like, well, I can raise these children and my brain is just ready to absorb everything and I can do whatever I set my mind to because I made these kids and they're alive and they're happy and healthy. And it really changed, like it just changed my perspective to everything. And now ever since that moment of clarity, it's work, I'm passionate about my work, I'm passionate about my hobbies and about my children. And I don't say no to opportunities, just try new things and everything. And that was a huge change. And it only happened after I became a mom because of how I was like career. It was the only thing I did. It was just that once that happened, now I love my job and I love my career, but then there are all these other things that I can do and even within the career or within my talent, I guess, or my knowledge in animation and art. And it just kind of it's like something like this, I don't know, like a new switch came on. And I think it's that multitasking that just teaches you how to that you can do more than you can ever imagine because you are taking care of live beings. And it's like you're working extra, I don't know, like muscles or something, like an extra muscle that shows up. So anyways, I wanted to share that. It's pretty cool. I think it makes me really happy to say that.
It's very cool. You should be very proud. One thing I'd like to, we're going to move on to any questions. So if anyone in the audience wants to message in the chat if you have any questions. Question for the speakers, what can companies do better to retain more parents in the workplace in VFX? Because the reason I started asking questions was because I looked around me and I only see dads in the work floor. I don't see any mothers. So this is a question to any speakers.
I think they could reassure women that if you do have a child and go on maternity leave for a long period of time, that time is going to go really fast and you're not going to miss out on your dreams when you come back, and that you will still be a valued member of the team and you've been hired and chosen because of your pregnancy and your child, whatever the journey, isn't going to change your skill and how we view you as a human. Hopefully, that's the dream. Obviously, some companies maybe don't feel that way, but I think just having that reassurance that it's you're still you, and the value of you as an artist is what you've built, and it still stays there. Like after the 9 months I took off, I came back and it was the same. I wasn't treated like, I was treated differently in a positive way, but I wasn't professionally treated any different. It was still Emma's capable, and my supervising dreams hadn't just been sort of passed on to someone else. It's all straight away. They were, right, Emma, what are we doing? Do you still want to do this? And I actually did the Unreal Fellowship with Carol. That's how we know each other. And I'm trying to bring that into the company, and they were like, yeah, cool, let's get it going. And so it did, knowing that you're not forgotten, I guess, and that you're loved.
Clementine?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it is just making it known that there are parents. Like, I think a lot of times we don't know like what the parent life of our colleagues are. And that's moms, but that's also dads. Like a lot of dads, I know my partner, for example, like he does 50% of the parenting, job. So he's just as involved and faces exactly the same issues I do. Like, okay, the giving birth bit was the giving birth bit and nursing was my part. But ever since, like that was the first year. It's a tiny part of like being a parent. Like the 5 years since, like we've shared this. So like him, sharing that, what he has to do and like making just the parents in your company visible as parents, I think is helpful. I know, like, for example, we've had company parties where they're not parties, they're like at lunch and you bring your family and your children. So I think that helps because you see your colleagues in a different light. You see them not, you know, as colleagues or even just as partners with their significant other. You also see their family and their children there, and that just makes that more visible. And I think that helps to everybody else who's considering having a family. They're like, oh yeah, there's a ton of other people who have families.
Yeah, absolutely. Carol?
So apart from the social events, like Clementine said, that family directed, you know, to bring that really makes the company very attractive to families, you know, to that you don't have to like completely separate your life. But also I was really surprised where I currently work. There was a maternity leave policy released. I've never seen that because I worked in very small companies, you know, like I was the maternity leave like policy for my other job. Like I was the first one because there was a dad, but he kind of, you know, he did his thing. Like that's another thing. Like there was no parental situation established, I guess. And my current company, they just kind of publicly, here's our policy. And I was like so impressed. It's like, well, I don't need it, but wow, that's cool. If I wanted to have a child, this place would be supportive. And I think the fact that it was released to everybody, that meant that men and women knew that this was an option. And I've never experienced that, I guess, to see like, oh, look, you can't have children here, and this is what would happen. And I think it was a really good policy. So we also have like a parents network and a women's network just inside, you know, to chat and promote things. Like I promoted this event there. So just to have things like that makes you feel that you know, you don't have to fully separate your career from your family. I mean, of course you want to be able to close your computer and move on, but you know, that's not the reality. So just to have that support, even me here at working from home, I just feel that, you know, my coworkers know I'm a mom, and my company knows that I'm a mom, and it's fine. I don't have to hide it or anything. So it's finding a place. What companies can do is just kind of make that more welcoming. You know, and I was amazed that it was just a policy just shared as another document, like here's what our maternity leave policy is. And I thought, you know, it's like, if I want to have another baby, like now I know. And then somebody that is thinking about it, or maybe like me in my late 20s, I hadn't thought about it, that would have triggered that in my head, like, oh, that's cool. Hey, maybe I could have, you know, we can make a family like in this industry. So it just trigger that thought, that conversation for people, and that was pretty neat. So I think there should be more of that.
Yeah, so much so good of them to share the policy. Arpita just mentioned in the chat that having like school pickup on your calendars is a really good way to go. So showing that you need to dedicate time to your other priority is ace. Clementine, you mentioned your partner's been really good in your relationship. So a question to everyone: how has your partners, have they influenced decisions before, during, and after like pregnancy or conceiving? And what if you are ready and your partner isn't? Is there any advice you can give?
Yeah, I'll jump on the whole like support system partner thing. Like, I know us, like how we work, like I couldn't, you know, I couldn't function day to day if he wasn't there. Like, no way. Like but that's also because we don't have family here. And I think everybody needs to find the support system that works for them. For us, for me personally, like it is him. Like that is like 100% how this works. Like he shares everything that we have to do. I mean, but yeah, that we do to take care of our child. And I'm also lucky because he works in the industry, but he works in R&D. So R&D is way more calm, like there's no like ups and downs to production. So that really helps. His only peak is SIGGRAPH, but it's always at the same time, so we can plan for it. So planning is also a big thing in parenthood. Like you can't say, you know, somebody can't come to you and say, you need to stay late to deliver this like now. Like if I haven't planned for, if I don't have a contingency plan, I can't just call daycare and be like, hey, I'm going to be 2 hours late. You okay with that? Like that's not something that can work. But if you have, you know, if you have the information earlier, then you can plan around it. Like I have done OT and I have delivered projects whilst being a mom. It's just, you need to know that one partner can, you know, take on more workload at some point, and then you switch, and then, you know, like it's a wave thing. But yeah, that being able to progress in my career and doing everything that I did since being a mom, I would not have been able to do that if he wasn't ready to follow those waves and those, like, you know, like share that load. And it's both being able to do it because, you know, he is an involved parent, but also like having a job that allows for that. I know that, you know, like not everybody can change their schedules and have flexibility and everything depending on what they do. So yeah, that was the thank you. I feel very thankful that I was, you know, that this is our situation and that I am able to do all this.
Another question, how has age affected your decision to try for a child? And Kate, I know you're quite young and it's hard to think of many 25-year-olds who do have kids in the industry. Would you consider trying again, even though you don't have any friends or who are in that situation? Or like Carol, you didn't know about policies until you were 30. So kind of question to both.
That's a really good question, because I have been moderately terrified since going through the same thing, because there's always that anxiety attack of like, oh my gosh, what if this happens again? I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this again. It's definitely changed for me going through what I went through. My stance on children. I think, like, sorry, there's some ambulances driving by my condo. But I think what like I definitely think like when I'm thinking like maybe when I'm older, like maybe 5 or 10 years older, I might think about it again. But like right now I'm in a period of time where I'm just like, I need time to process what I went through, learn from the experience, and figure out how exactly I would process it again, and how who I would reach out to, who my support system would be, because I know that now who my support system would be, which is kind of more reassuring in a way in the long term, where it's like I know the people who I'd reach out to first now in case that happened again. But yeah, it has changed it in a way where it's like maybe a little bit more scared, but it's also made me realize and consider that maybe I like, because I've always had this idea in my head that I've wanted twins. So I kind of, part of me is doubling down on that idea. And I can sense it a little bit. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I was 30 when my doctor reached out. It's hilarious. I mean, I didn't realize this was not normal. Like my doctors, actually, I was really lucky to have a doctor that said, you know, this is what happens to your body. I was living a carefree life with 4 dogs and my husband, you know, and I don't think we ever said we weren't having kids. I think we just, it was one of those things that it's so life-changing that I put it in the back of our heads, you know, and we hadn't thought about it. But once we thought about it, like Kate, I was terrified because I was like, something's going to grow inside of me and anything could happen. And that's crazy. But at the same time, we're like, we really want kids. And we said 2, not 1. We're like, if we're doing this, we're going to have 2. And then for 2 years, we were scared to even try. Just like, I think we were just scared of each other at that point. We're like, oh my God, what if we make a baby? But we wanted this. and took those 2 years to think about it and sort of semi-plan. Like I said, we didn't fully plan the way I think I would go back and do it again. We did, just kind of think what could happen and what do we want. I think I started with baby girl names before I even got pregnant. Like I was like planning this whole thing. And but it was 30. I felt that was a good age for me to start thinking about it. I think that I didn't know before about saving your eggs or was it freezing your eggs or any kind of preparation that I could have done to wait longer. So I just did it without a lot of control in my career. I am very A-type, and I probably, had I known that I could do something like that, I would have been on a waited for a time, I've been like, okay, I'm going to freeze my eggs and then just be at this perfect moment. But then again, that doesn't, there's never the right moment. Anything could happen. Yeah, and I was 32 when I got pregnant. The first time my miscarriage was the first time I got pregnant, and then immediately had a miscarriage. But very soon after that, I got pregnant again. So we were fortunate in that sense. We didn't have to, try too hard once we tried. But the learning, I think learning about all your options in your 20s, when your body has all the stuff that you need to have to make babies, it's great because it helps you make uneducated decisions. I think in your 30s is when your career kind of settles down. You're no longer a junior, you might be mid-level, you might even be a senior. And if you kind of have a little bit of a plan, maybe start a savings, whatever. I mean, you don't have to decide, it's all personal, but it's like, if you have that in your head that you want to have children, great time to start thinking about it in your 20s so that when you are ready, you have something. Yeah.
This is a great segue into the next question. So in our industry, many women choose career first, and we leave having kids until we're after 40, and it's a lot harder to try and conceive after to get pregnant after 40. So what options are there if you've left it too late, and what might we not know about trying to get pregnant after 40? What's it like? I think you're all under 40, but do you have any friends who have done like egg freezing before 30 or IVF or
I do. So I'm 43, but I have multiple friends who have children in their 40s. And quite a few with IVF, which was, a very difficult thing to go through. But at least one person ended up adopting a baby. And, these are all people that really wanted children. I don't think anybody regretted waiting, it is what it is. That's what their life panned out to be. But nobody that I know has ever frozen their eggs. I don't know if that's even when we were in our 20s was a thing as popular as common as or spoken about as it is now. But I think that I would want to say to people, no matter what age you are, if you really want to care for someone, there those options that can be expensive, with egg donation or IVF. But there's also adoption on the table, and I know actually a couple people who have adopted children, and they're incredibly happy with that. And that's why they just really wanted it. And I think when you really want to take this path in life, once it happens, I don't there's just not regret for it, because that's what you wanted, and then you realize that you have a life in your hands. And there's a lot of joy that comes from that, from all the little things they do, even if you are going crazy because you're not sleeping, or or your personal life, your romantic life is all over the place or whatever. It's like once you do it, I don't think there's an age, I guess, that you would say like just too late. I think there's always a way, even if it doesn't come from your body.
Thank you. We've got a few raised hands. Clementine, do you want to go first? Oh, you're muted. Clementine, you're muted.
Apologies. I was going to do it once at least. So, yeah, I had my child at 37, which is, considered on the later side. If, when I was 20, if, you had asked me, is this the plan? That was not the plan. I think what I'd recommend is, if you consider, like, if you're younger and you consider ever, like, you think that someday you might want a family, the best thing is to be aware of what your options are. So, like, ask around, egg freezing, this or that. Like, there are a lot of options open to you now. And obviously freezing your eggs earlier is better because your egg quality is better. So, like, if that's something that you're thinking you want to focus on your career for longer, then maybe that's something you want to consider. So yeah, like, information to me is like really important. And then the whole, like, waiting for the perfect moment thing is also, like, difficult to handle. Like, I know I kind of waited, and it just, there is no perfect moment. And that's the one, like, advice my mom gave me. She's like, I'm not going to give you life advice, but never, like, if you want kids, the perfect moment is never going to come. So you just know in your heart that you want to become a parent, and then you go for it and figure it out later. And so that's kind of how I went about it. And yeah, it wasn't my preferred moment, but that's what it is.
Thank you. Emma?
Just quickly, and Tatiana, please do ask your question. I would just say I think there needs to be more awareness and mental health support within every country for this kind of thing. When you do decide to start having children, you do come across couples, and it's hard when you hear their stories and it being difficult. And then the financial strain it could put on if and not only to mention that, but for same-sex couples who are desperate for a child, it seems so unfair. They have to not only go through the financial strain, but then also it's so uncared for. I'm not going to say at work, but just in general. And it would be nice if there was like a carer's leave package, or a sick, I don't want to say sick because it's not sickness, but some kind of care package in the industry that allowed people who are getting onto this journey to have a bit of a moment to take some time and breathe, because it can be so incredibly tough physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. And all the care comes after you have the kid, right? You get maternity and paternity, but we don't talk about the care you should actually have before and during that sort of journey, because it's a really stressful time, and anything can happen. You just don't know if you're going to be lucky or not. And unfortunately, it does come down to luck, and it's not fair. But if we could all support each other more and be there, I think we would be a much happier people in general. Both for men and for women, especially.
Before, and Joe, we've not very much touched on during, like, being pregnant or whilst trying to go through IVF. Like, it might be really tough emotionally for that person, because IVF can take a long time. Sometimes I've heard stories of it being 9 years long. Tatiana, you raised your hand.
Yeah, it wasn't a question. I just want to share a little story about my family. For example, my mother had me when she was 38. So at the time, it was, how to say it, she was a little bit late to have me at that age. And nowadays I ask her why she had me so late. And she was like, there was actually no rush about it. She was like, I wanted to have a little another experiences before having kids. For example, I wanted to enjoy my marriage only with my partner, and or to enjoy my career and other things. And I was like, but it could be a risk. And she was like, the problem wasn't that I got pregnant. Fortunately, she did, but she was like, if I would have one kids and that would be a problem that I couldn't get pregnant, then I would have adopted. The problem wasn't to get the pregnancy. She was like, if I wanted a kid, I would have one at my time, at my moment, and when I thought it was the right moment for me, that it hasn't to be the perfect moment. So I wanted to share that story that has always moved me, and I wanted to share that.
It's an excellent, very inspiring story. Thank you. Got one question about what's it like if your partner is in the same industry as you versus a partner not in the same industry as you? And like maybe you work the same hours. Is it harder or is it easier? Like Clementine, I think you touched on this earlier because your partner does, but is there anyone else in a similar situation?
My ex-partner is in VFX as well, and it was hard going through a miscarriage and dealing with that because everyone around us knew. Everyone kind of knew our situation because mutual friends know mutual friends know mutual friends, and it was complicated at best. So it eventually found its way to our social circles, and it was, I think my ex-partner found it embarrassing that I was going through this, which didn't really help our situation. But he didn't, and both of us didn't realize at the time, like our friends were trying to offer us support and trying to be there for us and trying to sympathize, but sometimes it was considered in the wrong way. So it was very complex in that regard, but I'll let the other moms kind of share their story as well. That was just my perspective of going through something that with both of us.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for your colleagues and friends for the support they gave. We're coming to the end of the talk, so I was wondering if the speakers could give some passing words of advice. What would you want to tell your younger self?
So many things. Oh my God. That's such a
succinctly.
So many things. Don't be so scared and trust yourself and your ability to adapt and build, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with something very similar. There was this fantastic podcast that said, be brave, not perfect. And that we raise girls to try and aim for perfection and not try things and not jump in and you know, even if they're scared. And that's what I strive to do, like both professionally, but like especially becoming a mother. It's just like, don't be scared, do it, and then you'll figure it out. And you will figure it out. Like you have, as a lot of others shared here, you have a lot of resilience and skills, and that you don't even know you have right now, and they just come out when you need them. So yeah, trust in yourself.
Thank you. Carol?
I'm not gonna repeat I feel exactly as with Emma and Clementine, and like Emma, I have a million things to say. There are two things. I would say definitely, you know, be responsible for your future. And what I mean is, as a year, I mean, I should have listened to this person better, but this guy told me, you know, when you make a choice, like think about how it's going to affect you 5 years ahead. And it sounds kind of crazy, but you know, there's a lot of things we can do that it could save you from a lot of trouble, right? If you're thinking, what would happen if I make this choice? And you could argue that also prevents you from trying things because you're like, oh, I'm scared of doing this because this might happen. But at the same time, I feel that we definitely could have done better in our financial planning for our family. And I would tell myself to, this is what you wanted. Like, think about a little bit more, not wait for the right time, but just think about it and make some choices, better choices, for this to happen, and so that you're not as stressed out when it actually is happening. It is coming from living in the US and our wonderful maternity laws. But if I really would tell myself that. So think about it, so, okay, you're going to have a baby in 3 years, 5 years, and, plan, and we did, because we did have a few years of cushion. We did sort of plan, but it wasn't as serious as it should have been. So that's what I would tell myself. Our second one was a little bit better organized, and we were better off.
Yeah, lots of Excel spreadsheets going on. Kate, do you have some final words?
I think for myself would be like stand up for myself more, because there's a lot of situations I was in where I was just like letting people dictate what they thought I should go through, especially from medical professionals that probably needed more experience dealing with women going through a miscarriage, telling me what I should feel and what I should do and what my next step should be. And it's like, well, I kind of like, I have family members who have already gone through a miscarriage who have given me their advice, and they're reiterating almost verbatim of what those family members told me. And it was just like, but I was too afraid to say anything, because it was the first time I've ever really gone through something that serious. And if I could tell myself to go back in time and, do something better, was be stand up for myself, vocalize my concerns more, and really stand my ground more on like what I was comfortable doing. And also just be a lot more open in communicating to, like, especially my workplace, about what was happening to me.
Yeah, it's hard to know that you're kind of going through a bad situation until you look back on the past, and it's like, oh, yeah, things should have been different.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
communication keeps coming up. Communicate how you feel. Get advice from everyone. But that's the end of the talk. There's been some really good comments in the chat. Yeah, thank you very much. If anyone has any other questions, you can join the Women in VFX Discord server. There's loads of everyone here. You guys have been amazing. So thank you so much for offering to give your time to talk.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you. Shaina, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie, for putting this all together, and organizing, and all the panelists. You're so great, and inspiring. So I'll send out the YouTube link to everyone who maybe had to leave early and things like that. And like Ellie said, we can continue the conversation in the, maternity leave channel in our Discord. So the panelists can hang out a couple minutes. I'm going to stop recording.